Hello. Welcome back to Let's Talk Bradbury. If you have not subscribed to our channel yet, please do. So, this is going to be the first video that I record in 2023, although you've been watching older episodes for the last week. But as with last year, we're continuing to roll on through the collection, these stories of Ray Bradbury, trying to get that done sometime early this year. We are up to story number 78 of 100, which is The Haunting of the New, written in 1969. The way these reviews work is I do a brief synopsis of what happens in the story and then wrap the thing up with just some sort of thoughts and feelings about what the whole thing possibly means. So, as for the synopsis, a writer named Charlie, who has been traveling the world in recent years, arrives in Dublin at the Royal Hibernian Hotel, which appears in some other Ray Bradbury short stories, and he's immediately met by his old friend, Nora. Nora's pretty hysterical and tries to basically give him her massive family estate out in the country called Grynwood. He agrees to drive out and visit. On the way, he reminisces about the many meetings they've had over the years. There are many debauched, opulent parties that she's held at Grynwood, and sort of how their paths have crossed many times, but they never really sort of became a permanent couple. But yeah, they arrive at Grynwood and it's empty. There's supposed to be a all-weekend party going on there. All of her parties last for days. But after the first night, the night before, everybody left. Nobody could take it. They just sort of let out. And now Nora tells Charlie a remarkable story about how 4 years ago, this 1,000-year-old originally a monastery or a church that was converted into a sort of a country manor house by her family 250 years earlier. How 4 years ago it burnt down, and eager to rebuild it, she went through the old plans and sorted through her memories and had it painstakingly recreated. All this priceless, one-of-a-kind art was basically recreated at great expense to try and bring back this part of her heritage and her life. But after the 4 years of work and they held this one party, it became quickly apparent that something was not the same. Charlie, he finds this story hard to believe, but after closer inspection, he realizes she's in fact telling the truth. This place is the same, but not the same. Nora, she feels haunted by the house, and she cannot stay. She feels that the house is new and innocent and sort of lacks the old corruption of their debaucheries for many, many years. And she feels like the house doesn't want them there because she thinks that she'll corrupt it. But she does think that Charlie perhaps has remained pure enough that the house might accept her. He says, well, let's try and stay the night and see what happens. They do that. They lay down, they try to make it through the night, but in fact, he feels this sense of unease, sort of the breath of the house, and early in the wee morning hours before dawn, they let out of there. And then the story sort of hints that perhaps they finally are ready to become a couple, but it's not entirely guaranteed. So, beautifully written, haunting, at times frantic. The whole story has a sense of longing and of also fear, which I quite like. At age 40 myself, like Nora, I do find this story relatable, although I've done very little debauching in my life. It's a haunted house story in a sense, but not your typical haunted house story. Typically, it's an evil house, corrupt house that wants good people out. In this case, it's actually a new house, a pure house, with no new memories of its own, that wants to avoid being corrupted by these sort of damaged, dirty people who have spent the last few decades engaging in every type of excess that they can. Nora, at age 40, has sort of finally grown up in a sense, and the story is written in 1969. I can't help but feel like there's some part of Bradbury is perhaps sort of remarking at the change of things, maybe it's an earlier decadence that took place, and then also the sort of the whole free love movement, but also with Vietnam being a thing and sort of new government corruption and sort of a sense that there's a changing of the guard and that people who partied their way through the 50s and 60s perhaps are finally now feeling that it's time to sort of grow up, and at the same time they wanted perhaps to recapture some of their old fun, but it's no longer fun. It's become a facsimile of itself, and I think that's what she's going through. It's also a little bit of a sort of a love story in a sense, sort of a not star-crossed lovers, but reluctant lovers, people who probably should have been together, but they were never ready for each other at the right time. And perhaps this is now the time for Charlie and Nora, but perhaps she thinks she's become too damaged for him, and she sees him as being this good thing that she gave up because she was obsessed with, screwing as many men as she could at her crazy parties. And she thinks that maybe it's time for him, but maybe she's missed that opportunity. But he sort of remarks that he's maybe not as pure as she thinks he is, because while she's been here partying, he's been out traveling the world as well, having his own experiences. But really, when it comes down to it, I think this is a story about the struggle to recapture the glory and the magic and the moment of your youth when you have all these memories of things that were just, you thought were so great, and whether intentionally or with a slow change of time, they've fallen away from you and you've become bereft from them, and you're trying to relive them. You're trying desperately to recapture them, and you just can't, because the moment is the thing, and whatever you do to bring them back will just be a sort of facsimile, and it will never sort of live up to your expectations, because you're different, times are different, everyone's different, and it becomes a sort of a facsimile. I relate to this in some parts of my life. Again, no big party animal, but there's aspects of my life, like an old message board that I founded like 22 years ago, that went through its heyday in the late 90s, early 2000s. We had great times, and then we spent many years before it finally died, where we desperately tried to bring it back, but at least I did, and I could never recapture it because the moment had passed and the internet had changed. And this is not necessarily as serious a thing as what they're talking about in this story about sort of real life's clashing. But I feel that. And I also feel that in sort of our local running club, which I took over, helped build up, and we had these sort of golden years where things were just awesome, and you could always depend on a great time running with your friends. And then I drifted away, other people drifted away, and on various points I tried to bring it back, but it was never the same. And it's a cautionary tale, I think, this story, that the haunting of the new. The new is haunted by your memories of the old, and you can also, by spending so much time trying to recapture the old, you lose new good memories. You don't make any new good memories because you're so obsessed with your nostalgia, and that's a very common thread in this world, I think. I think about it with like rock music, for example, where people say rock is dead and there's no good music made today, but there is good music made today. It's just not as popular as it was, and if you spend all your time looking backward, you miss out the journey of the exploration of finding the new. And there's definitely all this is taking place outside of Dublin. There's definitely a Woodstock parallel going on here, I think, that Bradbury was probably aware of, though maybe not. Story published in '69, so he may have written it earlier, but that's what I'm getting from it. This is very much an end of the 60s story by Ray Bradbury. All right, The Haunting of the New, 1969. Thank you for watching. Next time, we'll be looking at Tomorrow's Child from 1948, which is story number 79 of 100. We get through that, and we got 20 more to go in these stories of Ray Bradbury. Very excited to finish up this project that I've been going on for a couple of years now. This is the second volume of 100 stories of Ray Bradbury that I've done here on Let's Talk, and it's been a fun journey with a lot of enlightenment from the master of sci-fi and other genres. So, All right, then. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.